Alex, we were just positively overflowing with video games we played this weekend. There's just going to be too much to talk about for the next 60 minutes.
I played so many video games that I literally don't think I can talk about any video games because just trying to pick one for any given moment is just going to be far too overwhelming. I just peak video games, man.
I would just be unfair, if you can't talk
Yeah,
about all of them, then why talk about any of them?
you're right.
You got to treat it equality.
So we should just cancel this show. That's it. We can't. We're never going to cover anything right. This is a disaster. Just thanks for tuning in. Fuck it. Video games.
That seems like a good iTunes review.
Yeah.
Someone get on that. No, yeah, we each had weekends where we weren't really near video games, as it turns out.
Yeah. I was out of the house a decent amount, so I did not actually sit down and really play much of anything. The closest I got was having the one and only Kara Ellison come over for a little while so that we could go out to Flushing and go get some dim sum. She's in video games, so that's sort of like a video game, but that's not really me playing video games, unfortunately. So that did not, no.
Yeah, I played about 30 minutes of Divinity, but my Sunday was washed away because I had my first real bad allergy reaction
Oh
this
no.
year. Just has not. I've sneezed a couple of times, but just like
Yeah.
any human being sneezes.
Hmm.
And then yesterday, man, I don't know what it was, but it was a debilitating nightmare of just sneezing every 10 seconds, and my eyes, it was bad. It was a bad
Ugh.
situation. And what made it worse is because I haven't had any problems at all this year so far. I didn't take any medication like early on. I just thought, oh, it's whatever. I'm fine. And then I have at least found that medication becomes increasingly difficult to be helpful once you are in the middle of a full-blown allergy attack.
Yeah,
And I did. Yeah.
I don't get allergies super bad. Like at their worst, I get like a little bit of the watery eyes. I'll definitely have your sneezing fits and what have you. But since I've moved here, my allergies have gotten much better. They used to be far worse in California. For whatever reason, I just whatever plants are in California agree with my sinuses far less than whatever's out here. So I'm actually pretty okay. Unfortunately, my girlfriend is absolutely miserable every year, like having to take constant medication, just anything she can do to try and deal with it. And on top of that, mosquitoes absolutely love her. So
Oh,
on
that
top of having
sucks.
allergies, she has to deal with bug bites and constant attacks from various minuscule creatures trying to drink her blood. So summer is kind of a miserable time for her all around.
Well, and like a real bad allergy attack, if anyone watching is or listening is not aware, it's basically it. Man, it feels like you have the flu.
Hmm.
It's just you just can't. You're probably taking enough medication at that point that your brain is slowed down. You can't really process things. I tried to play Divinity and was just like, yep, this is nope, not today. So my plan was I was like, well, okay, I can't play Divinity. I haven't played games all weekend. What can I do? So we were just sitting around, catching up on the second half of that Agents of Shield show before we see Guardians of the Galaxy later this week. It's not a show you need to be paying like very particular attention to. It's certainly a one you can watch with your iPad out and get everything out about what's happening.
Right.
So I was looking for something to play, and I needed something that wouldn't require sound, which is also part of it. And in Worth Reading later today and in Worth Reading last week, I have twice highlighted articles about this Kim Kardashian Hollywood, which is a video game put out
Yeah.
by Glue Mobile, which is one of the more prominent uh, app developers. And what people are writing about this game was intriguing.
Yeah.
Like the line was always, "It's better than you think," and I needed to know why, because enough writers that I deeply respect had written interesting pieces about this Kim Kardashian video game that I wanted to know for myself, like what is that qualifier? Like what does that exactly mean? So I decided I downloaded it. It's free, so how much harm can it do? But I downloaded it last night.
So past me, and by past me, I mean me like 2 weeks ago, would have completely dismissed this game out of hand simply on the merit that it has Kim Kardashian on the front, and it just sounds like the kind of, crappy cash grab that any sort of celebrity-oriented video game tends to be. But like you, I've read a fair amount from people about, how it's actually kind of subversively funny. The game part of it is surprisingly well designed. There's like a whole host of things about it that make it much more than just, a game that someone slapped Kim Kardashian's brand on. Now, I'm having a hard time wrestling with that notion because and maybe all my perceptions are incorrect. I have no idea, but my perception has always been that Kim Kardashian, anything that is associated with that is sort of somehow lessened by comparison. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Kanye West's material has gotten better since the whole Kim Kardashian thing has started. I like Yeezus just fine, but, So, maybe that perception is incorrect. Patrick, is it?
Well, so it's a time game, right? So it's a game of meters, basically. There are meters everywhere. You are, the game's premise is that you are working at some sort of hip clothing shop somewhere in Los Angeles, and you can be a guy or girl, and then you have just a happenstance run-in with Kim Kardashian, and she takes a liking to you and says, "Oh, you should come by this photo shoot," and then as a result of coming by this photo shoot, you kind of get the ball rolling on the gameplay or the gameplay arc, which is to go from a E-list celebrity to an A-list celebrity. So like when you walk in, Kim has a little icon that says an A, and that is kind of what you are headed towards so that you can be on her level. And so the actual gameplay is it's a pretty well drawn world there are little icons all over the place, and you have to spend these lightning bars, which are essentially your energy meter, on those. And then when those are up, you have to wait on a cooldown in order to use more of those on the environment, and you have to use those on the environment to get the little icons that fill up the other meter, which level you up. And when you level up, you can wear better clothes, which then allow you to participate in events that are also gated by stuff like that allow you to gain more fame, which allows your fame to go up, and then when your fame goes up, you can have more fans, and when you have more fans, then you can go from an E-list celebrity to an A-list celebrity. So you can see already it's just a game of meters that are touching other meters, and then those meters go up, and then the other meter goes up, and then the other meter goes up. And so in that respect, I don't know if this thing is any good. Those types of gameplay mechanics gross me out, and they're created in order to... You don't need to buy anything in this game, but if you want to be playing it for more than spurts of 15 minutes, then you have to be buying things in this game. There does not appear to be, at least early on, a way to carefully balance or play skillfully in a way that will allow you to continue to do things for, let's say, 90 minutes of watching a couple episodes of a television show. But the subversive angle of it is 100% right on. The writing is incredibly funny. It is constantly making fun of the celebrity culture that Kim Kardashian and the people who, give her power by worshiping her as a celebrity participate in. And it's literally, it is actually, I was laughing out loud like multiple times during my experience. I put a couple of photos up on Twitter last night while I was playing it, but I was actually laughing, and I was surprised at it.
Do you think this is just a case of a team of developers getting saddled with this game and no real oversight other than make it something functional so that we don't get sued, and then just take it and being like, fuck it, let's just run with it, let's just make it what we want it to be, let's make it something better than what they're asking for? Like, how does that happen, that a game that sounds, by all accounts, like exactly the kind of, sort of time-sucking cash grab thing that any sort of celebrity-focused game would be, become something better than that?
I don't even know if it's something better than that as much as it's aware of what it is,
sure.
Right? So it even makes fun of the very soul-sucking gameplay mechanics that it's using, to be quote-unquote free when, it's definitely not. It is a game you can download for free, and that
Right.
very soon, if you want to continue participating in this little wheelhouse, you're going to have to fork over some money. But does it make it a better? Is it better that it's aware that it's kind of complete garbage and pokes fun at itself, knowing that it has to exist anyway? Does that make it a better thing? I'm not
I mean,
sure. It makes it funnier.
on some level, yes, it does. I also think that, to a degree, like, I think there is merit in the idea of poking fun at something like that if that is the framework you are constrained to. Like, if this is the kind of game you have to make, then by all means make fun of it. That doesn't necessarily make me want to play it, though, because that means I'm actually going out of my way to take this thing that is making fun of the very thing that it is.
Well, so
And,
it doesn't make fun of her
well, I'm
necessarily.
not talking about her. I just mean, like, the type of game and the type of
Right.
culture around it and all that stuff.
Yeah, it feels like it gets awfully close to. I start wondering about how this game was made, and if Kim Kardashian was to play this game, would she think it was like to her? Would this seem funny? Like, is it wink, wink, like that she is this hyper aware of celebrity culture as well, or would this come across as crass and offensive and sort of, making fun of the entire empire that she, rightfully has built on her own? And I don't know. I'm fascinated by it though, and that's what I wonder about the subversive nature of it, because by being subversive, does it try and pretend that it's okay to exist when that is not necessarily the case, right? Like, is it using irony as a way to shield itself from criticism for still doing all the same things that a lot of these games do? It just happens to have a really big brand associated with it, which makes the irony that much heavier because it actually has, a fairly large target that is, attached to the name itself.
I guess two things. One, she's probably stoked at the idea that something associated with her brand isn't just getting shit on left and right by everybody instantaneously. Because, I mean, as much as she is, a very powerful person all of a sudden in celebrity culture, there is definitely a subset of people who will just take anything she does and just immediately call it garbage. And, hey, I've been guilty of doing exactly that because I certainly don't watch their show. I have no interest in anything that she is associated with in general. It is not my thing. So I imagine that if there are people out there who are actually writing impassioned defenses of like what this game is and what it represents and all that stuff, and I've read a couple of those pieces, that's probably just bonus all around. I mean, that game is going to make money regardless, and if there are people out there actually willing to defend it, that is probably pretty great for her. The other side of it is, I still don't want to play it. Like, I've watched videos of it. I've read the defenses of it. I've listened to what you have to say. It just, that kind of irony just doesn't hold a shit ton of appeal to me anymore. I don't want to put my time into something that is, even if it's aware of what it is and it is finding ways to make that kind of funny, it's not enough. It's not enough to me to say, okay, well, that's enough to make me like this, because I still don't like those types of games at all.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't, I'll probably invest, a couple more nights of just kind of poking at it when I'm watching television to see where it goes. But, unless it radically changes, there is nothing about the game itself I find particularly interesting. It may be a well-made one of those, but that's
It's still one of those.
It's still one of those. It's still a game of meters, and although it's kind of fun and playful how the icons dance around, and at least the way you're spending things, I don't know. Yes, I think the game deserves a lot of credit for being hyper aware and breaking the fourth wall in a lot of ways. And it's not just that it's aware; it is like fairly like a biting, hilarious commentary about celebrity culture, and really spends a lot of time poking fun at the media and the way that media culture builds up these people and tears them down. And that's getting into critiques of celebrity culture is its own thing, but that is certainly probably the thing that the game is most aware of is is talking about the media circus that surrounds all of this stuff. And so all that stuff, again, makes it kind of funny when you have a Twitter feed in the game that is constantly getting sort of updated, and you can kind of interact and choose like dialogue bubbles and in terms of how you respond. And I don't know, it's a type of game that I never interact with, and if you ever wanted to see what one of these games is like and at least feel like you'll enjoy one part of it as you go through, this is probably your best bet.
Yeah.
I know that some people really liked that. Was it Simpsons Tapped Out? Was one of the I think
I would. Yeah, that
the
is the name of the game. I've never played it because I've gotten way too many in-app. Hey, you should download this things from other EA mobile games to ever want to download that game ever. So yeah.
But yeah, if the filling the meter game and then waiting to fill the meter again, I don't like doing that. But
yeah,
it is free. It is relatively harmless, and if you wanted to spend 90 minutes in front of it to see what people are talking about, you can definitely get a sense of what that is in the first 90 minutes, where you'll be able to play kind of uninterrupted before you start running into a lot of heavy gating where there's literally nothing for you to do. But
someone in the chat just linked to another game that Glue Mobile made called Stardom: The A-List, where it kind of looks like it's the same game. Did they actually just take a version of a game they'd already made and turn that into the Kim Kardashian game and then rewrite it? I guess, I don't know.
Oh, is that what this Stardom, the A-List? Yeah, I bet.
It kind of looks the same, at least, if nothing else.
I'm looking at the screenshots on our website. I'm glad there are screenshots of this game on our website. Sometimes when I write about stuff, like when I was linking to the Kim Kardashian game and Worth Reading, I was like, do I really need to add this to the database? It's only going to get mentioned here once. I'm not going to bother. But then, thankfully, the users had already added it.
It's a cultural touchstone right now, so it's probably best that we have it at least in the database somewhere.
You know what? I think this seems like it is just a straight-up reskin.
Yeah.
This looks a lot... Well, Soke Stardom takes place in New York City. This takes place in Los Angeles.
Huge difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When obviously the art is definitely, they went for historical accuracy. But, well, I'm sure reskins happen. I'm sure they happen all the time on the iOS store.
Yeah, and I imagine they did a lot of original, writing for that game and stuff. So it's not just the same thing.
Yeah, I would imagine, like they have, a Paris Hilton equivalent and some stuff like that in.
There you go.
Called Willow Page in the Kardashian game, and she's pretty funny. And the game has some interesting, even for example, the first, as it's introducing all the sort of things you can do in the world before it sort of just kind of lets you loose and to the world of meters, is that you go to a bar, and I assume this would be the flip side if you had picked to play as a woman, but I was playing as a guy that kind of looked like me, and you can flirt with this sort of Paris Hilton type, and that kind of introduces you to sort of the different romance options you have in the game and the dates you can go on. And then when you go back to meet with Kim, she says, "Oh, I'm going to set you up on a date." She's like, "You're into girls, right?" And then gives you the option to change that characteristic of the character that you're playing, where it introduces the romance option from a very specific lens, but then says, "Hey, you want to do it the other way? You're free to play that kind of character," which I thought was, I don't know, a little more progressive and inclusive than I expected a game like Kim Kardashian Hollywood to be. But I don't know. I thought that was an interesting little bit that they at least gave you the option to play with.
Yeah, I saw a few other people bring that up when talking about that game, and yes, you're right, that is a little bit more progressive. I also think it's absolutely idiotic that we're still having to have this conversation over and over again, where it's like this is a special thing in games that only occasionally,
Sure.
they get right. It's just, that's the tiring aspect for me, is the idea that every time, even something like this, when it does it, it gets held up for it because it's like, hey, this is a cool thing that it did. It's instead of just saying, hey, this is the standard thing that everyone does,
Yeah, and to the larger point that might be more applicable to a lot of the folks watching this was the story I featured last week in Worth Reading was specifically about a woman for Jezebel, one of the Gawker sites, wrote She spent like $500 in a week, and I'm sure part of it was, that she was spending, Gawker money. I don't know if she disclosed that or not, but I'd have to imagine that was part of it. And even if it wasn't, what I found interesting about it was, as much as we deride free-to-play mechanics and the weird gating that happens with these energy meters and how it feels so soul-sucking compared to the really rich gameplay experiences we get out of a lot of the other games we play. Not to say that a lot of these free-to-play designs aren't detestable and we shouldn't approve of them, but there are large swaths of people that just don't care. Like, they're just fine with it. Like, it's just, they don't play games in the way we do, and they're okay with pulling out their phone every couple of hours. They've got an hour to kill, and that's worth $5 to them to fill that hour continually with this one game that maybe makes them laugh. And I feel like it can be a slightly elitist to look down on that too much if that makes people happy.
I mean, I don't look down on the idea of spending money on these types of games if that's what entertains people. Like, I've certainly spent my share of money. I mean, me, spending a little money to buy some decks in Hearthstone, or buy some cards in Hearthstone, is not that much worse than someone spending a couple of bucks to fill an hour or two when they need to kill some time. It's just the quality of the game that sometimes I take umbrage with. Like, the issue of spending money on in-app purchases is not inherently an evil thing. It's that a lot of these games, just what they offer, to me at least, just seems tedious in a way that is not really entertaining at all. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of where I come off on that side of it.
Yeah, and later today I'll have a big interview with one of the developers worked on The Room, where we talk about a lot of this type of stuff, and the idea that one of the reasons that serious game developers work and make games for the App Store is partially based on this theory that these predatory or seemingly predatory game design that has hooked in large crowds of people, do they play that stuff only because they don't know any better? And if they were exposed to more quality game experiences, would they convert? Would they then value games more? Or is there a good enough mentality that these people don't have any interest in engaging with games on a deeper level or with deeper gameplay experiences, and crossing your fingers and hoping that if they're exposed to better stuff means they would enjoy better stuff or have better taste in games as a result, may just be a fallacy on its face.
Yeah, that's probably true.
It is probably true that it informs a bad perception for them about what games can be, but I don't necessarily know if the conversion ratio for this audience would be all that high regardless.
Yeah, there are tons of people who are just never going to get into more complicated or, just deeper games in general, because that's just not what they're interested in. I mean, I have tried for years to get my parents and also my stepsister into, any kind of games that aren't just like, kind of frivolous cell phone time wasters, and it'll just never work because they just don't like those kinds of games. My stepdad played the original Legend of Zelda, loved the absolute shit out of it. I bought him Ocarina of Time. My stepsister bought him an N64 so he could play it. He played about 4 hours of it and was like, nah, I don't know, not really. Didn't really do it for me. That's the one game he will ever go back to from any old system. The original Legend of Zelda, that is it. I could give him any other iteration of that game, even though it's doing the same formula. He just like, no, I just don't like it as much. People have those things that they lock into, that they like, that work for them. Good for them. That you can't force people to like things they're just not interested in.
Yeah, and the one thing that came up in my interview that'll be up later is that the weird thing about the sort of free-to-play crowd, and I know that seems like oddly dismissive to characterize it that way, but like, these very popular games on these different app marketplaces, and a lot of them are, free-to-play or free-to-win, if you want to maybe categorize them more accurately. Sure. If you were to, this developer I was talking to, Barry Mead, I know it's Barry... Yeah, it's Barry Mead. And one of the things he mentioned when he has discussions about free-to-play games and talking to these audiences, and when he's sort of read up on sort of these demographics is that if you ask these very same people who play a lot of what we perceive as shallow gameplay experiences or exploitative experiences, you know, if you ask them, well, do you intentionally seek out to listen to the worst music or watch the worst movies? And they're insulted.
Yeah.
Because no, of course not. And so I think that you have to kind of keep that in mind when you think about, you know, these games as I think it's partially just kind of where the medium is right now in terms of a wider perception. It may be being damaged by a lot of these games that are continually popular and obviously popular because they're free. Like one of the other things that Barry mentioned that was interesting was that, you know, the most common way to define a new game for the average user is to just go to the top grossing metric, you know, in the top charts in the App Store. Then there's the top free games, top grossing, top paid, blah 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 blah. And if you look at the, you know, top 1 through 30, you'll probably think that those are on the top because they're pretty good. Are you gonna check out that game that's $1.99 that's, you know, 52? Probably not.
Yeah.
Because you think it's there for a reason when that's not even true. But I mean, it is true, but not true for the reasons that would be immediately obvious when looking at the chart, you know, off the cuff.
Sure.
Anyway.
Well, that is a lot of time spent talking about Kim Kardashian and free-to-play games and mobile games and what have you.
They're interesting.
They are interesting.
They exist. Hey, you can deride them all you want. They're still out there, and a lot of people are playing them, and that makes them, I think, fascinating to watch and see why they appeal to people.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm above ever playing those kinds of games. Like, I certainly played my share of Tiny Tower when that first came out. You know, meter games I'm certainly not too good for them. It's just, you know, I think I had my fill of those for a little while, and I'm not. The more people tell me about this Kim Kardashian game, the more I want to actually try it. But then I actually look at what the game is and look at screenshots and watch videos. I'm like, I don't want to play this. Patrick, am I going to have to play this?
No, I'll do it for you.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay.
It's all on me.
You are now our Kim Kardashian culture editor.
Yeah, sure. And from anime editor to Kim Kardashian culture editor, that seems like a fair transition.
This does mean you have to start watching the E! Network show now.
Oh, it's on in our house every once in a while anyway, so I'm already there.
It's always on at the gym. Whenever I'm at the gym, like that, it is always tuned. One of the TVs is always tuned to the E! Network.
Yep, it's impossible to avoid. You can't, whatever you do, it's somewhere. But let's move on to some of the news. There was a Comic-Con over the weekend. There's some stuff that came out of there that is worth talking about. Well, non-Comic-Con related, but another convention. So Sony's Gamescom page briefly had a list of games up that were going to be at Gamescom. Of course, it was taken down not too soon after, but it was captured by the folks at the users at NeoGAF, in which it reveals we are going to get a PS4 version of Journey.
That's not surprising.
The dormant, but was always told to be still in development, PlayStation Move horror game. We'll see if it's still a PlayStation Move game. Until Dawn is now a PlayStation 4 game, and we're going to check out Q Games' newest pixel junk game, Nom Nom Galaxy, which I think they already announced that they should an early access game.
I've heard that like specifically Nom Nom Galaxy said to me by someone, so that must have been out there.
Yeah, it's an early access game on Steam right now.
Okay.
But man, it has been a couple of years since I played Journey. I will happily play Journey a second. I will double dip on Journey, and I will play that a second time in 1080p, 60 frames a second. Oh my God, I'm in.
Definitively, to me, the best That Game Company game. Still one of my favorite experiences in any video game over the last few years. It's a really simple but extremely elegant thing. That is one of those games that I have just about anyone I've showed it to, including people who do not play a lot of video games, have at the very least expressed a strong interest in watching me play it. I don't know what it is about that game. I don't know what it is about just the design of it and visually and just mechanically, but it's that is a game that has stuck with me in a way that most games do not.
Yeah, and it's one of those games I wish more games had like attract modes. I would love to just have Journey on playing. Just the world looks incredible. I listen to the soundtrack all the time when I'm writing. It's just, yeah, that is one of those games that early on when they said they were gonna have Flower at the PlayStation 4 launch, I was like, okay, that's fine, but come on, port the game that we all actually want. Port Journey. That's the one I want.
Yeah.
I actually wanted. I mean, Flower looks fine. It looks beautiful. I certainly enjoyed that game at the time, but yeah, Journey is something else. Oh, I guess there are other PS4 ports that Joystick points out. There have been content rating sort of entries for Hustle Kings, which is that's a pool game, I believe. Pix the Cat. I don't know what that is. And The Unfinished Swan.
Ah, The Unfinished Swan. Yeah. What is that cat game?
I don't know. I'm trying to Pix the Cat.
That's not that PlayStation cat mascot, is it? I can never remember the name of that thing.
I'm looking at it. It Pix the Cat. It's like some little old school looking games, I guess.
Oh, okay.
But Unfinished Swan, that was a game that I wanted to like much more than I actually did.
Wait, which one?
Unfinished Swan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not I don't remember much liking the game part of it so much. It was visually really cool, but I don't remember enjoying playing it very much. I actually don't even really remember how it plays exactly. Like I spent a couple of hours with it and then I just kind of forgot about it.
You like the mechanics change from world to world, but it sort of starts out with where you have just it's just white, and then you're spraying ink kind of all over the world.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
Sort of inform and figure out exactly where to go. It's a super neat idea, and that's about all I got out of it. It was not the profound revelatory experience that Journey was. It's if it becomes a PlayStation Plus game, absolutely worth checking out. But yeah, it's not quite on the same level as Journey, for sure.
Well, fair enough.
So yeah, that'll be interesting. I think continuing to put out updated versions of those older games is pretty interesting. I don't know how I feel about paying for them.
Yeah.
The time.
If there's been considerable development work going into making them better for the PlayStation 4, then that's fine. I think Journey is probably the one of those games that I would be willing to plop down some more money on just because it's so good. But yeah, I don't know. In general, I think at some point they're going to have to get past this porting of old games thing, because like it's an okay stopgap solution for now. It's like, here's the thing you remember, but now it's better while we work on all these other games that maybe will come out someday. But I don't think they can kind of keep doing this for too much longer, especially in the volume that they're doing it without there's not a whole lot of original stuff coming out on the PS4 right now. So,
Yeah, and I want to play The Last of Us again, but I have to admit I was given some pause at paying $50 for that.
Yeah.
I am not discounting any of the work that Naughty Dog clearly put into that. It is, the way they talked about it, the amount of attention to detail, the idea that you can pick between 60 frames per second or 30 frames a second if you want, the faster frame rate or the sort of original locked frame rate on PS3. Clearly they have put in the time and should charge whatever they think that is worth, but I already played that game.
Yeah.
So as much as I want to play that DLC that I did not get around to yet, $50 is, I think it might be a little out of what I want to pay right now for a game a second time around. But I'll eventually do it.
I'm going to get it only because it was my favorite game of last year, and I do kind of want to replay at least some of it again, and I've been kind of itching to do that lately. So this I think now my girlfriend is out of town next weekend. I have nothing to do, so replaying The Last of Us and just having myself a good solitary cry seems like a really good way to have that weekend. Gonna curl up on the couch, wrap myself in blankets, and just sob my little eyes out.
Well, I don't know if to sob or to get excited about the fact that Namco claims that Tekken Cross Street Fighter is still in development. Is that a game? Is that a game that anyone still wants? Does anyone want to see that game?
You know what? Yes, I do. I actually did want to see that game when they first talked about it. That was the one I was more excited about because I really like Tekken. I've always enjoyed the Tekken series, and I would love to see what the Tekken dudes would do when faced with having to translate Street Fighter characters into that game. That at least sounded interesting to me, but it's been so fucking long at this point that interest has almost bottomed out, especially now that they've already announced Tekken 7. It's like, all right, well, if you're still working on this, you'd better get to it soon because you've got this other Tekken, and I really want to play that, and I like my patience for this is wearing very much thin, especially after Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which was not great.
Yeah. So unless that thing is, I mean, I would love to see Street Fighter characters that are playing in the Tekken engine. I mean, I want to see that mostly as a trailer. I don't know if I really want to play that. But
yeah, it could be terrible. It could actually be a terrible game. I have no idea. I just wanted to see it, and maybe we'll get to the point where we'll finally see it, and then I'll just never play it.
Yeah. So I guess that's still coming. I don't know if I believe them on that, though. I'm not sure that game will actually ship. I know they can say that, but I don't know. I'll believe it when it shows up. I
mean, if you want to tell me there's like 10 dudes in Japan working on like an engine demo somewhere, sure, I'll believe that. But beyond that, I don't know.
Telltale at Comic-Con confirmed they are going to do a season 3 of The Walking Dead, which I don't think that should surprise anyone.
No. I've already I threw my prediction for what season 3 of that game is going to be in the last recap I did. We'll see if I am proven correct or not, but I have my own theories about where that story is going.
Are you being completely hypothetical, or does the game, again, don't explain what it is, but are there elements in the series that seem to point towards an idea they have, or are you just completely conjecturing on what you'd like it to be?
No, this is stuff that's pointed to within the story that I am kind of basing off of. I don't know what I would want a season 3 of that game to be, but what I have predicted is purely based on the direction the story seems to be going, especially at the end of the very last episode. So we'll see.
Are you excited for a season 3 as someone that is a little bit further in the season than I am right now?
It's going to depend on whether they stick the finale or not. If the finale is good, if they actually hit the landing, then I will probably be a lot more excited for it than I am like right now. Because that last episode, again, kind of a bummer. So,
yeah, I'm hopefully gonna finally play that tonight. But I'm hoping that having tempered my expectations will maybe allow me to enjoy it a little bit more. Although my expectations have been kind of, as much as I like to see episode 3, they've been kind of tempered, generally speaking.
Yeah.
They also, BioWare had a Comic-Con panel in which they showed some footage from the next Mass Effect, which, some people are calling Mass Effect 4, but they don't call it Mass Effect 4, and I'm starting to think that they're going to not. It'll be Mass Effect : something, as opposed to a Mass Effect 4, because they're still being very coy about the timeline. The hints they were giving at Comic-Con were that it takes place during Shepard's lifetime, but in a different part of the galaxy, whatever that means. But that it's not going to be an instance where you're just, you're not going to be locked onto one planet. Like, you're going to be exploring, and they're bringing back the Mako and all that stuff. I think it's curious that if it really is going to be, during the Reaper threat and not before or after. I don't know. I guess I was hoping that it would be one or the other. Like, I always thought the idea of, the origin story of the human race meeting aliens could be super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of different wars and conflicts alluded to in the Mass Effect series that are just in the encyclopedia that you can read through. I never quite thought they'd go after Shepard, because having to choose a canonical ending seems like a shit show that they wouldn't want to be a part of. Because there are all sorts of different ways that can wiggle out, but I don't know. I'm sure it'll still be fine, but from the outside looking in at that, I'm a little less excited about it.
On a very minor point that I would like to belabor here for a second, I saw Manveer from BioWare yelling a little bit on Twitter, I think last week, where he said, "Hey, stop calling it Mass Effect 4. It's the next Mass Effect game. We have never called it Mass Effect 4. My rule with that is if your working title takes longer to say than just the title with a number in it, I'm not going to do that until you give me a real title. So when BioWare gives us a real title for the next Mass Effect game, then that's what I'll call it. Until then, it's fucking Mass Effect 4. Deal with it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, Mass Effect 4 is just shorthand. No one, I think even when people are calling it Mass Effect 4, they're basically saying the fourth Mass Effect, not that it is. You know, I think even them pushing back on that is an indication that they don't want to go into the shit show that would be the post-Shepard timeline. Like by saying Mass Effect 4, you imply a chronological forward progression that it seems like they're going to sidestep.
Yeah, and unless you're doing like some Volition, the next great sequel in the Saints Row franchise type shit, not gonna work for me. Sorry.
What do you want from another Mass Effect?
God, I am not a diehard Mass Effect fan. I have like the first one is the only one I have played to completion. So again,
because it's the best one. So you chose the right one. You chose Mass Effect 1.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have tried to get me to finish Mass Effect 2, and it's not because I don't like it. It's just, I don't know. The BioWare stuff has never been my favorite stuff, so it takes a little more work for me to get into it. I think I would be perfectly fine if they went the prequel route. I would definitely like to see some of the early universe stuff that they allude to, but you know, it sounds like they never really get too deeply into throughout the main sequels. I don't know. I am not the person to really ask for that. I am not the kind of diehard fan who has like real specific expectations for that series. I think this will be my opportunity to kind of jump back into Mass Effect stuff, and maybe that'll get me to finally finish the other couple of games. I don't know. I would just like to see them try something kind of wildly different story-wise. You know, just go to some other corner of that universe and do something kind of batshit. I would like to see that.
That's fair. That is fair. This is just a friendly reminder. I've just found a reason to mention the Swapper again, which is that the Swapper is coming to Wii U.
That's right.
Later this year. And Swapper's a really good game. You should play the Swapper.
You're right. I should play the Swapper.
Really good video game. So I look for any reason to tell people they should play the Swapper, and so this is my instance where I'm going to tell people you should play the Swapper because it's coming to Wii U later this year. It's a great game played on all sorts of other platforms. It's on the PS3 and the Vita. Is it on the PS4 as well? Probably.
If not now, soon, probably.
The Swapper.
Swapper.
And I don't really have any other.
Did you watch that Mad Max?
I did watch that trailer for Mad Max. That movie looks like it's not going to be bad, which I was fearing for a long time.
That was one of the most exciting goddamn trailers I have seen for a movie in a very long time, and I have become incredibly jaded and cynical toward, you know, movie marketing and all that kind of shit. That aroused the kind of feelings the exact kind of feelings I wanted to see in a modern update of Mad Max. It was all there, right there. It looked ridiculous in the best ways possible.
I guess my fear was, Fury Road had a long, delayed,
it did,
troubled production cycle. Like, wasn't it going to shoot and then it got canceled? And then they did, I don't know. Either way, it's taken forever for this goddamn movie to come out.
It has.
It kept making me wonder, George Miller has not made, I don't want to sound too dismissive, but he has not made a real movie in a long time.
No, he has not.
Like this.
No, not anything even remotely like this in quite some time. So, yeah, there were many reasons to think this would not work out.
But that trailer, in my mind, when you think about bringing back an 80s movie in 2014, well, I guess 2015, when it actually comes out, it looks like that.
I totally forgot he directed both Happy Feet movies.
Right, I just looked him up on IMDb.
Holy shit, I forgot about that.
I mean, I know he lost like 2 years to trying to make that Justice League movie that got canceled weeks before shooting because Christopher Nolan said, "Nuh-uh, son." But yeah, that man has not done a lot in a while.
No, I mean the last, significant movie that dude has made, Babe, Pig in the City.
which I know people say is pretty good.
It is. Both
I know. I
the
think
main
we've had
movies
this
are not
conversation.
bad. That movie came out in 1998. Then he made the 2 Happy Feet movies. That was it. That was all he made throughout the 2000s.
All right. So what if I told you this, that I have not seen any of the Mad Max films? Now,
Wait.
I know. Bear with me. Now, if I was to solve that, should I really watch Beyond the Thunderdome? I hear mixed feelings on the way that the Mad Max trilogy ends.
Beyond Thunderdome is not a good movie at all.
Mm.
And I think I maybe hate it just slightly less than most people do. It is definitely not a good movie.
Is that the one with Tina Turner?
Tina Turner is indeed in Beyond Thunderdome.
Okay.
So yeah, there is that. For me, I don't know, man. Mad Max is the movie. Like Road Warrior is really good too, but Mad Max is kind of the beginning and the end of it for me. So I would say you could watch Thunderdome, but really just watch just watch the first two. Just watch the first two.
I feel bad. I was reminded about this blind spot watching that trailer going, oh, shit. I don't know why I don't even know why. It's not like I've avoided it or wouldn't think I would fall in love with it. I don't know. I just have a blind spot with those films. I'm sure I'm going to fucking love them when I actually play it or watch it.
Those first two movies are spectacular. A lot of people, like, there are people who will say, no, just watch The Road Warrior. No, I think Mad Max on its own, the original Mad Max, is still a really amazing movie, especially for, kind of coming out when it did. So I would say those two definitely need to be seen.
Are they on Blu-ray?
They should be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I don't own them on Blu-ray. I own them on DVD, but yeah, I think they're on Blu-ray.
They definitely are. Okay, I will have to. 1981. Wow. Okay. Wow. Really.
Right.
Then Beyond the Thunderdome, or Beyond Thunderdome. I keep saying Beyond the Thunderdome, but 1985. All right. Well, okay. That movie came out when I was born, so be excused if I haven't seen it, but that's still not a good reason.
Yeah.
That video game is still coming out.
It is, and that's still the Just Cause people, right?
Mm-hmm.
God, yeah.
I guess I'm more excited for that game now, having seen that trailer. Nothing about the Mad Max trailers for the video game. I mean, I look at it and I'm like, okay, it's the Just Cause guys. I'll absolutely play it because I trust they can create something crazy. But if they're making something tonally like this new film, then okay, sure, yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah. Again, I always trusted those guys to handle that franchise because they understand the kind of ridiculous that something Mad Max should be. That doesn't mean I don't really just wish they were working on another Just Cause game, but I maybe, if that movie's good, here's hoping the game can, oh god, a really good Mad Max game would be fucking amazing. It's really hard to trust that anyone could actually make that.
When I really enjoyed I watched the Mad Max bit when the trailer went up yesterday, and then was reading some of the excerpts from the panel he was on talking about it. He's like, "Oh, I just wanted to make a chase movie. Like the idea that this could just be a 90-minute, big budget, summer blockbuster, but well made, kind of like Rise of the Planet of the Apes or Dawn of the Planet, whatever the most recent one was. Like the idea that it's like a smart, big budget blockbuster that also just happens to be a 90-minute chase film. That sounds fucking awesome."
Yeah. All right, that's my homework assignment to you. Go watch Mad Max and The Road Warrior.
All right, I'm on it. I've gotten worse homework assignments in my life.
Yeah, probably far worse.
And I don't really have anything else from Comic-Con.
Other than Norm Chan's cosplay gallery, that was kind of the only thing I really cared that much about that came out of Comic-Con was the Mad Max stuff. I don't know. I feel so numb to all the movie stuff that comes out of there these days that it's really hard for me to really care all that much. It's like, okay, cool, more about Avengers and whatever, great. Fucking Mad Max, man. They can actually reboot that right. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm with you. So what are you up to this week?
Oh, what am I up to this week? Vinny and I have a couple of things on the docket. I think we're going to record a proper Encyclopedia Bombastica for NFL 2K5 this week. The live thing ended up being kind of rushed and had some tech problems, so we're going to do a real video for that this week. Other than that, it's just going to be kind of whatever is on the quick look calendar. And I think we're going to finally start filming ourselves setting up the studio because pieces of equipment are starting to show up. Vinny got his new sound mixer, which is part of the reason why we had audio issues last Friday because he was trying to experiment with that while also run a live broadcast. So we might have some stuff around that. We'll see. What do you got coming up?
Well, first, I don't like what Cabrit Sans Core says, not to go back to Mad Max, but I'm going to go back to Mad Max. Says the original U.S. theatrical run of Mad Max had the Australian accents dubbed out? What?
Okay, I don't think I've ever seen that version then, because I never saw that movie in theaters or anything like that. I've only seen it either on TV or on video, and I remember having the original Australian accent, so I don't think I've ever seen that dubbed version.
Well, I guess, yeah, I mean, those movies are shot in Australia, largely Australian actors, right? So I guess
Yeah.
not a surprise it'd be real Aussie.
Mel Gibson, man.
Man,
Remember Mel Gibson?
I, don't we all? Don't we all? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we don't. Maybe
There
we
was a
don't.
time. There was a time.
Yeah, so later today I'll have a big interview feature going up with Barry Mead, who is one of the primary developers of the Room. We talk a lot about porting the Room to the PC, and then spend a substantial amount of time talking about the mobile market. That I think the arguments he makes, a lot of folks that read a site like Giant Bomb will be awfully sympathetic to about where all that stuff is going, the potential impact it might have on consoles, and it comes from a guy who works on a team that has had success charging money for a video game in a market where everyone's running away from that very thing. So there's a lot of really smart, interesting things said in that, so look for that later today. I will probably play more of that Kim Kardashian game and then write something about it, so I can try and provide, because I feel like some of the write-ups have maybe given that game a little too much leeway on the game part. Maybe we need to bring that back down to earth a little bit. So I might do something on that, and then I have a huge post-mortem interview with the programmer on Shovel Knight, talking about the making of that game and kind of what they've got planned for the future, including we talk a lot about some of the fights they had over the course of that game in terms of what is allowed for an 8-bit game and what isn't allowed for an 8-bit game. So there's some interesting stuff there, and I might later this week have an interview with the guy who won EVO, who also
awesome.
Won it with a PlayStation 1 controller. So
the Street Fighter tournament, right?
Yeah. The main event.
The main event.
So hopefully I'll be able to get that up later in the week as well. So a bunch of stuff coming down the pike, and that'll bring us to Friday, where
Indeed.
I guess I'll have to talk to you again.
I know, right? Ugh.
So, Alex, I'll see you then.
Woo.